Good morning, and hey now, PASW, staff, clients, and friends joining us. If you're wondering what that music was in the beginning, I thought that, it only took months for me to think maybe we should do a theme song, have a theme song. Since we're doing such good work, and I'm proud of the work we're doing, I thought that, and in celebration of our 75th class together. Yes, this is 75 classes we've done together. So I thought that that would be a good moment to bring in a little jingle theme music. I hope you like it. I think it works, right? I think we like it. Let's live with it for a little bit, and then and if we don't, we can change it. So happy 75th to us. Okay, and we have a good one today too. We're going to be well, before we get there, let's talk about what we did yesterday. We talked about a very influential composition teacher, maybe the most influential of the 20th century, Nadia Boulanger, and how she changed perhaps classical, if not all kinds of music in the 20th century. So we're gonna go from her little flat in Paris, her little apartment, and we're gonna go to the Sunset Strip. Well, no one told me about in particular the 60s, the 1960s of the Sunset Strip. So although this is part of our LA series class, this particular place is not interesting for its architecture. So you won't get some sort of second-rate, fourth-rate Art Deco lecture. But we will talk about the what has happened in this building, and today we'll be talking about the Whisky a Go-Go.
The way she looked, the way she acted, the color of her hair, her voice was soft and cool, her eyes were clear and bright, but she's not there.
So if we think historically, obviously Sunset Boulevard's been there, since the beginning of LA, over 100 years. Well, it's been there, forever. But I mean, the actual boulevard has been there for a long time, established there. It's called the Strip, not because there's strip clubs or anything, but that's because what the city engineers would just call it when they were building the LA city. They would just call that the Strip because it kind of winds like that. So so if we think of the Sunset Strip in the 40s and 50s, it was glamorous with nightclubs and gangsters, Mickey Cohen, Bugsy Siegel, there's Ciro's, there's, very glamorous side of show business. Now that all goes away sort of because, well, of a lot of reasons, but that goes into Vegas territory. So we have, Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe hanging out on the Strip in the 50s, and they still do later, but they move on to kind of the Vegas section. So there's a void on the Sunset Strip in the early 60s. And that void is going to be taken over by hippies, I think. And so instead of having these kind of classy little nightclubs, local nightclubs, this guy Elmer Valentine, he sees that there's a way to capitalize on this thing, and he puts his club back on the map of the cultural consciousness of teenagers, of people wanting a new type of music. So he's got a great vision, but it's also perfect timing, right? If we're talking about 1964, what was happening there? Well, a lot of music for teenagers, in particular with the help of the Beatles, was thriving. So that's going to be the history, the context of the Whisky class as we move forward through this. So the name originally starts in Paris, and they took the name, Elmer and the other investors took the name from a place in Paris in 1947 by Paul Piscini, and that's where the title first comes from. It's Whisky a Go-Go. They spell it without the EY at the end because I guess in LA there were zoning laws, so you couldn't have a club named after an alcohol. So that hence, whiskey without an E. I don't know if that's still the law or is it the zoning law. It's kind of funny, but So just that's why they didn't misspell it on purpose. So this guy Elmer goes to Paris, finds this cool little club name and cool club, brings it over to L.A. and we get the Whisky on 8901 Sunset Boulevard. So it's like Sunset in San Vicente, so it's a great location for a club. So he opens the club January 16, 1964 with a very famous artist and songwriter, Johnny Rivers.
Secret agent man, secret agent man.
Johnny Rivers played 3 sets a night at the club, starting off. But between the shows, the audience would dance to records, and they would play records played by a DJ. So the original DJ was this young woman in a miniskirt who danced as she spun records from this glass booth above the floor to make more room for the dancers. And this gave the birth of the Go-Go Girl. So the girls would be in these glass-walled booths mounted high above the floor to make room for the dancers, but they would be DJing and doing this in between the sets, and people just thought it was part of the show, and so they became enthralled in this environment that was thriving. And it was a big hit. I mean, Cary Grant, Johnny Carson, the Beatles, they would hold court in these red booths, and Rita Hayworth, Lana Turner, Steve McQueen, they'd all come down here specifically in the early 60s to hear Johnny Rivers perform, and then a little band called The Doors became the house band there. And I know we did our class on the Beatles in LA, and I'm glad we're doing this now because I did forget to mention when the Beatles were renting the house from Zsa Zsa Gabor, they were huge Burt Lancaster fans, so they wanted to go to his house to watch the Peter Sellers movie A Shot in the Dark, and they loved meeting Burt, and then they all went down. Jane Mansfield brought them down to the Whisky to hang out and see a show, and that's where George throws the glass of water because they could not get served a drink, and that's what they wanted. So, I mean, so many stories happening there. So from 64 really till today, the Whisky's been such an important part of bands. So, like I said, the Doors were the first kind of house band. That's where they got their start, their following. But, obviously Jim Morrison was crazy, and after his little Oedipal rant where he kind of does this improvisation, they're not allowed to ask back because it's a little inappropriate what he does, and he's also so stoned a lot where he's fallen off the stage, so they get asked to leave politely, which is okay because we get Jimi Hendrix coming in to perform there, Velvet Underground, Cream, The Who, The Animals, The Kinks, The Byrds. Frank Zappa gets a record deal after performing there one night. Van Morrison's there. Led Zeppelin performs there. In 1966, Otis Redding, who we talked about last week, records an album there. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles performed there. A lot of black acts and R&B acts were allowed to perform there, which is great. Accepted, not only allowed, but accepted. Martha and the Vandellas, the Four Tops, the Temptations. I like the Temptations more than the Four Tops, but I don't know, they're both pretty good. And so Alice Cooper's there. There's just, I'm naming so many because there's just, all these bands are still relevant today. People still talk about these people, and a lot of them got their start there. Charles Manson was also thrown out of that club, which was probably a good thing. Janis Joplin also had her last drink there. Southern Comfort right before her death in 1970, so that's kind of some morbid trivia. So in the late 60s, we get more of the hippie movement. I know I said hippies at the beginning of the 60s. They were kind of more teeny boppers or whatever, but the hippie movement starts mid 60s, and by the late 60s, especially the Summer of Love in 67, people, they're being called as freaks, these hippies, by the police, by parents, and the city was announcing a shutdown of these places, including the Whisky, because there were riots going on. There was the hippies and free love movement against the man, or the the government, the police, and all these. I mean, some of it was probably accurate and true, and then some of it was just probably people on bad trips rebelling for no other reason than to rebel. And this was the inspiration for Buffalo Springfield's famous song "For What It's Worth."
Stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
The times were changing definitely for the world, but also for this rock and roll club. And it kind of, in the early 70s, I think Elmer was a little bit, Lou Adler comes in and helps him keep the club going afloat, but there's not really much happening until the influx of punk groups in the 70s comes back and brings the Whisky alive again. Particularly in 1977, so Blondie performs in 77, and then in that same year, Elvis Costello plays his first LA gig at the Whisky. And after that, the 80s happen, and so there's this, metal hair scene with Kiss and Guns N' Roses and Van Halen and Motley Crue. They start performing at the Whisky. They get their own following. They're huge now, but these guys really a lot of them got their start at this place. And in the 90s, you have the Seattle people coming through. You have Soundgarden performing there, Jane's Addiction, Nirvana performs at the Whisky. So it's a very fun place. It sounded like a fun place. I've never been there, actually. I'm just not that much of a club person. I think I would have gone in the 60s, perhaps. Just to see some of these people would have been fun. So that's our LA class, the Whisky A Go-Go. Still there, still thriving. I don't know who's playing there, but you know what? It's like, I could say, yeah, probably nobody famous is playing there. And that's probably what people said in the 60s. Let's go see this guy. It's Bob Dylan. I don't know if we've ever heard of him, or it's Elvis Costello. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's like things are happening, and we think these people just become successes just immediately overnight. But there's probably somebody performing there, practicing there, that we're probably gonna hear about in the next few months, the next year. 10 years from now, we're going to be, oh my gosh, he played at the Whisky. That's where he started. So that's cool to always think that culture and art, it's always evolving, especially in the city that I love, you love, we all love, Los Angeles. So hope you guys enjoyed this class. I had a lot of fun doing this. And yeah, okay, fine. I said it all. Yes, you got me. I said it all. I'm very proud of you guys for being so such a good audience in the class. So miss you guys, love you guys. We have a lot of stuff to do tomorrow, so hope you're ready for it. Okay.